Ada wiped the sweat from her brow as she carried her tray of Akara through the crowded streets of Lagos. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the pavements into a hot furnace beneath her worn sandals. She could feel the stares, the whispers, the laughter from people who thought she had no future. Some called her foolish, others said she was wasting her youth under the harsh sun, frying beans into little golden balls that would barely fill her stomach at the end of the day. But Ada refused to let their words sink in. Every insult, every scoff, only made her hold her head higher. She remembered the first day she decided to sell Akara. Her mother had been too sick to cook, and the little money she had saved from small chores had to stretch to keep the family afloat. Ada had taken a risk, borrowing a small frying pan and a few measures of beans from a neighbor. She had walked to the market, hands trembling, heart pounding, not knowing if anyone would even buy a single piece. But the first woman who stopped, who smiled and bit into the warm, soft Akara, had changed something inside her. She realized she could create her own path, even if the road was hard and full of eyes judging her every step. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The sun rose and set, painting the Lagos skyline in shades of heat and dust, and Ada became part of that rhythm. Every morning she woke before dawn, mixing beans with pepper and onions, grinding them to perfection, shaping each Akara with care. Her arms ached, her feet blistered, her skin darkened under the relentless sun, but she moved with a purpose that no one could see, a quiet determination that grew stronger with each passing day. People started noticing the taste, the care she put into every piece. Some would linger longer than needed, asking about her life, about her dreams, about how she managed to smile even when others laughed at her. Business wasn't easy. Sometimes she returned home with barely enough to pay for the next day's ingredients. Sometimes her tray would topple, sending golden spheres rolling into the dust, drawing ridicule from passers-by. But Ada refused to quit. She learned the rhythm of the city, which streets brought the most customers, which times of day made people crave a bite, which flavors made them come back for more. She began experimenting, adding a touch of seasoning here, a dash of something unique there, until her Akara had a taste that could not be found anywhere else. She met people who doubted her, who tried to pull her down. One man, a well-dressed businessman, had stopped and sneered, telling her she was wasting her time, that she could never be more than a street seller. But Ada smiled politely and walked on, her tray steady, her heart steady. The sting of their words never left her, but it fueled her, teaching her patience, teaching her resilience. Every no became a lesson, every insult a reminder that she was building something bigger than they could understand. Months turned into years. Ada's reputation grew. Her small stall in the corner of the street became a destination. People began coming from different parts of the city, asking for the Akara everyone was talking about. Some offered her small loans to expand, others invited her to cater for events, weddings, even local politicians' meetings. Ada took what she could handle, slowly, carefully, never rushing, never compromising on quality. Her hands, once raw and blistered, became skilled instruments, shaping perfect Akara with a precision that told a story of perseverance and love. And then, one day, it happened. A popular magazine did a feature on the girl with the golden Akara, telling the story of a young woman who refused to quit despite every hardship. The article went viral. Social media lit up with praise and admiration. Suddenly, the same people who had mocked her were trying to find her, eager to taste what they had once dismissed. Orders came flooding in. She hired helpers, moved to a small kitchen, started branding her Akara, giving it a name that carried hope and triumph in every bite. Ada stood in that kitchen, looking at the city skyline through the open window, feeling the weight of every insult, every setback, every scorching sunburn, lifting from her shoulders. She remembered the early mornings, the late nights, the moments she wanted to give up but didn't. And she smiled, because she knew that the path she had walked, though difficult and lonely at times, had led her to this moment where she was not just surviving, but thriving, not just selling Akara, but building a legacy. Politicians, celebrities, and business magnates began coming to her brand, inviting her to exclusive events, offering partnerships, proposing deals that would have seemed impossible when she first stepped onto the street with that small tray. And through it all, Ada remained the same girl who once sold Akara under the relentless sun, who had felt the sting of mockery and the ache of long days, who had believed in herself when no one else did. The streets that had once laughed at her now carried whispers of admiration. The woman who had once faced the scorn of a city had become a figure of inspiration. And as Ada prepared her next batch, mixing beans with care, sprinkling seasoning like magic, she understood the truth that had guided her all along. No beginning is too small, no insult too big, and no dream too distant if you are willing to hold on and work for it. The journey had just begun, and Ada felt the thrill of what lay ahead, knowing that every step, every decision, every piece of Akara she shaped with her hands was part of a story that would be told for years to come. The city had changed around Ada, but she had changed even more. Her small stall was now a modest building painted in warm yellows and rich browns, the aroma of freshly fried Akara drifting through the streets like an invisible invitation. The early mornings were no longer hers alone. She had a team of trusted helpers who arrived before dawn to prepare the beans, grind the mixture, and shape each piece with the same care she had always insisted upon. Even so, Ada still arrived first, adjusting trays, checking flavors, and tasting each batch herself. She could not let the essence of her Akara, the warmth, the texture, the balance of seasoning, be lost. That essence was her identity, the story of years of sweat, patience, and defiance against doubt. Businessmen in sharp suits, women in flowing fabrics, government officials, and curious students, all came to her small shop, eager for the Akara that had become a sensation. Some came quietly, careful not to reveal who they were, curious about the girl who had started with nothing. Others came boldly, expecting her to bow to their influence, assuming her humble beginnings meant she could be intimidated. Ada treated them all the same, with respect, warmth, and a firm sense of purpose. She never allowed flattery to distract her from the work, never let prestige overshadow her craft. Every bite of her Akara was meant to tell her story, to communicate a truth that could not be spoken with words alone. Resilience had a taste, and it was golden, soft, and unforgettable. One evening, as the city was bathed in the soft amber of sunset, Ada leaned against the counter, watching people come and go. She remembered the long walks she had taken with her tray on her head, the jeers from those who thought she was foolish, the moments when hunger pressed against her ribs and exhaustion weighed down her shoulders. Back then, she had carried her small tray through the very streets that now celebrated her name. And she realized something that had been true all along: the streets had never been the enemy. They had been the proving ground, shaping her resolve, teaching her patience, and demanding a kind of perseverance that polished her soul. Word of Ada's success spread beyond the city. Invitations arrived from across Nigeria, from event planners, restaurants, and even television shows. She was asked to speak at business forums, sharing her journey from street hawker to entrepreneur. She would stand in front of audiences, her hands steady, her voice calm, telling them not about fame or wealth but about dedication, about showing up every day even when no one believed in you. And behind her words, hidden from view, was the fire of every early morning, every scorching afternoon, every sleepless night she had endured to perfect her craft. But with success came new challenges. Competitors appeared, some trying to imitate her recipe, others attempting to undercut her prices. Rumors circulated, and a few tried to tarnish her reputation. Ada faced these threats with the same steady patience that had carried her from the streets. She experimented with subtle innovations, adding flavors that were uniquely hers, creating packaging that reflected the care she put into every Akara, and building a network of loyal customers who would never settle for imitation. She learned that growth meant not just making more Akara, but protecting what made her product special, preserving the soul of her work while scaling it to reach a larger audience. Then there were the unexpected offers, the kind she had once only imagined in dreams. Politicians, young and old, influential men and women who had the power to shape policies and careers, began showing interest, not in the Akara, but in her. Invitations for private meetings, formal dinners, and high-profile events arrived with increasing frequency. Some were respectful, admiring her journey, wanting to collaborate in ways that honored her vision. Others were forward, eager to connect with her for reasons that had nothing to do with business. Ada navigated these waters with the same discernment she had always applied to her work. She was cautious, aware of her value, and never allowed herself to be reduced to an object of admiration or ambition. Her focus remained unshakable: her Akara, her team, and the legacy she was building. Late one night, after a long day of frying, packaging, and meeting clients, Ada sat by the window of her small apartment above the shop. The city lights flickered like fireflies below, and she felt a profound sense of calm. She thought of the first time she had sold Akara, standing under the harsh sun, facing sneers and laughter. She thought of the mornings she had crawled out of bed before dawn, grinding beans until her fingers ached. She thought of the nights she had worried about money, about what people thought, about whether she had the strength to continue. And she realized she had not only survived but had created something lasting, something that would endure far beyond her own story. Ada's journey had transformed her into more than a street vendor turned entrepreneur. She had become a symbol, a story whispered in markets, celebrated in small kitchens, and written in magazines. People spoke of her not only for the taste of her Akara but for the courage it represented. She became a mentor to young women who wanted to start small businesses, teaching them the same lessons she had learned through experience: persistence, attention to detail, integrity, and the quiet power of believing in yourself when the world tells you not to. Her life was no longer defined by the heat of the sun or the weight of a tray on her head. It was defined by choices, by vision, and by the relentless pursuit of excellence. Every decision carried weight, every flavor was deliberate, every interaction mattered. Ada had discovered a profound truth: greatness does not come from being recognized by the world immediately. It comes from showing up every day, refining your craft, and allowing patience and persistence to shape you into something unstoppable. And yet, even as she celebrated her victories, Ada felt a new kind of thrill, an anticipation for what was coming. She knew that her journey was far from complete. There were new cities to conquer, new flavors to invent, new lives to touch with her story. And somewhere deep inside, beyond the recognition, beyond the wealth, beyond the admiration, Ada carried the same spark that had first propelled her onto the streets with a small tray of beans and oil. That spark was unyielding, and it whispered to her with every heartbeat, "This is only the beginning." The morning air in Lagos carried a peculiar energy, a mix of heat, movement, and expectation that seemed to hum beneath the city's surface. Ada walked through it with a calm certainty, her hands full of freshly prepared Akara, her mind alive with plans. She had built something extraordinary, something that had begun with a simple tray and the courage to keep moving forward despite scorn and doubt. But this morning felt different. There was a sense that the world was about to shift around her once again, that the next chapter in her life would demand not just skill and patience, but vision and boldness. Her shop had become a landmark, known to anyone with a taste for the golden spheres that carried the warmth of her hands and the care of her heart. Celebrities dropped in to be photographed with her, politicians requested private batches for special events, and social media influencers recorded videos as they savored her creations, praising the flavor and authenticity that could not be replicated. Every day brought a new challenge, a new opportunity, a new measure of what it meant to lead and inspire. Ada had grown into a woman who commanded attention not because she demanded it, but because her presence and work demanded it naturally. One afternoon, a young entrepreneur approached her with a proposal that seemed both daring and frightening. He wanted to partner with her to open a chain of outlets across major cities, to bring her Akara to places she had only dreamed of reaching. Ada listened carefully, weighing the possibilities, considering the risks. The idea was tempting, but it required trust, delegation, and an expansion of her vision beyond what she had built with her own hands. She took a deep breath, recalling every moment of struggle, every early morning under the unforgiving sun, every failure that had taught her lessons more valuable than gold. And she realized that the same patience and determination that had carried her through the streets of Lagos would now carry her into new territories, as long as she remained true to her values. As plans for expansion moved forward, Ada began mentoring a small group of young women, teaching them the craft of making akara, the importance of discipline, and the power of perseverance. Each woman brought her own energy, her own stories of struggle and hope, and Ada guided them patiently, showing them not only how to shape the beans and fry them to perfection, but how to cultivate a mindset that refused to be shaken by criticism or circumstance. She shared with them the lessons she had learned in the most difficult times, the long hours, the ridicule, the moments of exhaustion, and the wisdom that had transformed her into more than a street seller, a creator, a leader, a woman whose work carried meaning beyond profit. Despite the growth, Ada never lost her connection to the streets where it all began. On certain mornings, she would leave her office, her team already bustling, and walk among the vendors, quietly observing, learning, and remembering. The scents, the chatter, the rhythm of the city. All of it reminded her of the journey, of the small beginnings that had made her who she was. She would smile at the young hawkers, offer advice, or simply nod in recognition of their hard work, knowing that one day, they too could transform their labor into legacy. Then came the evening of the city gala, an event attended by Nigeria's most influential figures. Ada arrived, not in a gown adorned with glittering jewels, but in a simple dress that spoke of elegance without pretense. Politicians and business leaders approached her, some with admiration, others with curiosity, all eager to understand the woman who had risen from the streets to a place of prominence. She listened, she laughed, she shared her story in concise, heartfelt words, captivating everyone with the authenticity that had always set her apart. And as she moved through the crowd, she realized that her life had become a tapestry woven from every choice, every setback, every sunrise she had endured. Each golden piece of akara was a thread in that tapestry, a symbol of what could be accomplished through unyielding resolve. Success, however, brought its own complexities. Ada faced moments of doubt, nights when the weight of responsibility pressed down on her like a storm cloud. She had to make decisions that affected her employees, her family, her brand, and her own future. She had to negotiate deals that could make or break her expansion. She had to navigate the delicate balance between staying true to her craft and embracing the demands of a growing empire. Yet in each moment of tension, she returned to the same principle that had guided her from the very beginning. Focus on quality, honor your work, respect those who support you, and never allow the noise of the world to drown out your purpose. Months turned into years. Ada's brand became a household name across Nigeria. The akara that had once been sold from a small tray now came in carefully packaged boxes, shipped to restaurants, catered for events, and enjoyed by people who could never have imagined its humble origins. Interviews, features, and accolades followed, but Ada measured her success not by recognition alone, but by the lives she touched, the young women she mentored, the streets she remembered, and the lessons she never forgot. And then came the day when a politician, one of the most influential men in the country, approached her with a proposal, not for business, but for partnership in life. He was captivated not by wealth, not by fame, but by the story she carried, by the dignity and courage in her journey. Ada listened carefully, knowing that life had always demanded discernment as well as courage. She considered what it meant to enter into a relationship that could shift her world, recognizing that her heart, like her craft, deserved patience, respect, and thoughtful care. She was no longer a girl who sold akara under the sun. She was a woman whose choices now carried the weight of experience and wisdom. Ada continued to rise, navigating the complexities of success with the same careful hands that had shaped her first tray of akara. Every morning, she returned to the kitchen, tasting, testing, refining, and creating. Every evening, she reflected, planning, mentoring, and sharing. Her life had become a symphony of labor, passion, and vision. And through it all, she never forgot the streets that had built her, the heat that had forged her, and the quiet voice inside that had told her, day after day, that small beginnings were never to be dismissed, and that perseverance, patience, and unwavering belief in oneself could transform even the humblest start into a story that inspired a nation. Ada stood by the window one night, looking at the city sprawling beneath her, the lights twinkling like captured stars. She felt a warmth not from the sun, but from the life she had built, the people she had touched, and the possibilities still ahead. She understood deeply now that her journey was not only about Akara, not only about fame or influence, but about proving that a single soul, determined, patient, and unyielding, could shape destiny itself. And in that understanding, she felt an exhilaration unlike anything she had known, a joy so profound it could not be measured, a satisfaction so complete it illuminated every step of her past, and a certainty that her story would continue to unfold, touching hearts, inspiring dreams, and turning humble beginnings into legendary triumph. Thank you for joining us on Ada's incredible journey. From a young woman selling Akara under the sun to a trailblazing entrepreneur admired by a nation. Her story reminds us that no beginning is too small, patience and perseverance can transform lives, and believing in yourself can turn dreams into reality. If you were inspired by Ada's journey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories like this. We'd also love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments which country you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. Your stories and experiences make our community stronger, and we can't wait to read them. Stay inspired, keep chasing your dreams, and remember, greatness can come from the most unexpected places.